I'm Rituraj, and I'm currently working as a senior analyst at Tetra Pak India Private Limited. I'm closely associated with ATA, and I'm a part of the ATA core group. I'm acting as an active volunteer for all the ATA meetups and ATA GTR and these kind of summits which are happening online these days. So let me quickly share my screen and then we will see like what we have for the next session. So I would like to welcome our next esteemed speaker. His name is Hitesh Prajapati. Uh, Hitesh comes with a strong academic history. He has been associated with the test automation industry for nearly 5 years, and he has ascended the ladder of knowledge at a very fastest pace within such a short span of time. He's a test automation architect. He's a freelancer, trainer. Uh, when it comes to the technology stack, I think he is a kind of a multifaceted uh, uh, professional, IT professional who has enough amount of experience when it comes to Selenium, Cucumber, Protractor, Appium, TestNG, Azure DevOps, CI/CD, API automation, and all. And one good thing which I would like to mention about Hitesh is like he has already won uh, many competitions which we organize as a part of ATA GTR. So be it CT Hackathon or Automathon. I think couple of times he was runner up and couple of times he was a winner also. So I think it's good to have such esteemed speakers for these summits. And then today he would be speaking on the topic Selenium 4, what's coming our way. If you would like to get to know about Hitesh, then you can visit the Selenium Summit website, and then from there you can get to know about his profile. Once again, welcome Hitesh, and then probably you can start sharing your screen, and then please proceed. Over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, Rituraj. I think that was a wonderful introduction. I was certainly looking at the slides and I was like, okay, that's it. But yeah, you summed up everything, and thanks a lot for having me here. So I think it's a long day. Many people are here from the morning, and a couple of people are joining in the middle. But yeah, I mean, before we start, let me first share my screen so that I can actually talk about what's coming our way. Mm, Let me know once if anyone can confirm if you are able to see my screen. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Okay. So good afternoon all. I think it's about to be an evening, and I hope you all had your coffee because it's going to be an hour of session. But believe me, it's going to be worth a while. And with that, you'll get to learn a lot of things. But before that, let me just understand what our audience looks like. So if you could open this link, just log into Slido, and you can use Selenium Summit code. And if you can keep adding your responses before we even start our presentation. So yeah, we'll take like couple of minutes before we start, but yeah, it would be great if you start adding your surveys to this. Let me share the link in the chat as well for you guys to refer to it. Yep, you guys can directly use your mobile or web app to just start adding your polls there. I think I'm expecting a lot of polls here. We have got 3. Let's see how it looks like. I think it's Selenium Summit 21. That's what you need to use as a code. We've got 7 responses so far. Let's hurry up, guys. There are a lot of learning from this presentation, so it would be great if we, start early and we'll work on that one. And we have 10 responses. Okay, 11. Time is running. Okay. So like most of the people are from automation background. That's what I can see. Oh, I hope the questions are not that hard. Okay, we have got 19 responses. Yeah, I think 90% of people are familiar with the architecture, which makes like it's going to be easier session for all of you in that case. Okay, a lot of people has started Selenium 4 as well, but majority of people are using stable version. Oh, a lot of Java geeks. Okay. Whoa, we have got a good number of responses in this case. So I think a lot of people is going to love this presentation. So yeah, I think we'll start it very soon. I'm just gonna stop the polling sometime. Okay, that looks cool. So I think if you guys allow me, I would like to start I'll keep the poll open if you want to continue adding it. In the meantime, let's start with the session. So let me switch back to my presentation. Okay, so today's agenda would be we'll talk about what are the new features that we see in the Selenium 4. So starting with the introduction, followed by all the features that we see in the Selenium 4, that is relative locator, previously known as a friendly locators, capturing element screenshot, handling the Windows tabs, Windows and tabs, and Chrome Dev Tools and Selenium Grid. After that, we are going to talk about transition from Selenium 3.x to 4.x. I think this is the portion where a lot of people would like to understand what it's gonna look like when you are actually transforming from 3 to 4. And lastly, we'll just move to the question and answer. So let's begin with that. Oh, I think you must be tired of looking the same image again and again. I think what I did was I just gave uh, presentation slide or random images, but yeah, you just have to bear with that one. So myself, Hitesh Prajapati, I am a test automation architect. I'm working on PMC, Paul Mason Consulting, which is in Vadodara, Gujarat. Talking about the tools that I've worked, I've worked on Selenium, Protractor, Appium, Cucumber, Rest Assured. Along with that, I've worked on a lot of languages like JavaScript, Java, TypeScript, and C Sharp. So that's all about me. I think Ritraj has already covered what I have done so far in terms of challenges and all. So let's directly move to what we have for this. So whenever there is a new version, we are thinking what's new for ourselves to work on. So over here, we already have seen the points that relative locators are new, capturing the element screen. So to let you aware, what we are going to do is we are just going to go through all the features. We are going to go on a demo. We at the end of the session, you would be able to understand what are all the changes and whether you will be able to transform your existing automation script into the 4.x or not. So that's what we'll have as a takeaway. So relative locators. So in Selenium, we have like new 4 locators. So earlier you used to use by.id, by.tag name, by.class name. And now we have got this 5 new locators, which are referred as in relative locators now. And those are above, below, to left of, to right of, and near. If you look at the code, whenever you are going to use relative locator, how it starts actually. It starts with a static class, which is relative locator, and then you can use with tag name, and you'll get all the methods that I already mentioned in the left hand side of the screen. That is to left of, above, below, and all of this method takes an overloaded values, parameters, either a by locators or of element. So it's your call to decide which one you want to use. But yeah, all of these methods have a overloaded method which you can use it based on your requirement. So let's take a bad example first. So let me first switch back to the application so that we can understand how relative locators work. So I hope you guys are able to see my screen. And let's take an example. So what I want to do is I just want to locate an element, which is this one. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use an inspect element. And it says that the ID is password. So what I am looking with the relative locator is to find out this field and enter the text. So that is what I want to do. So what I am thinking is this particular email address is above the password and to the right of email address. So that's what we are going to use over here. So if you can see here in the code, it is trying to find an element with tag name input, which is above password, which is what we have seen. This is above password and to the right of email create. So this one. So I'm expecting this to be located, but how that turned out to be a bad example. Let's see it in the next slide. Oh, that's not actually selecting what we want. So to be honest, I am not a very big fan of relative locators. It completely depends on what kind of application you are using, how many dynamic elements you are having, and how your DOM structure looks like. So this is something, it's a bad example of how you can use the relative locator. So what it does, it actually tries to find out it found this one and not this one. So you have to be very careful when you use relative locator. So this is what I was expecting, and then we'll move towards the good example, and then we'll take a look at the demo one. So the good example is that what I'm going to do is I'm just going to limit the area where the Selenium is trying to search the element. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mention that I want to find this input, which is above password, to the right of email address, and below search. If we look at here, we have used, I'm trying to find an element with tag name input, which is above password, to the right of email create, and below search query. If we use that way, we can see that it's now selecting valid element, where I actually want to add the text. So that's how you need to be very smart, because with relative locators, you need to understand how it actually works. And also you need to understand how your DOM structure looks like. So that was all, because it was very much important for ourselves to understand how it works. So I think that lends us to demo time. I don't know how much of you like minions, but I'm very big fan of it. But yeah, this is the point where it start to get dirty. So wish me luck in this. Before we begin with any demo, I just wanted to mention the tech stack I'm using. So for automation, I'm using Selenium as a tool, Java as in language binding, TestNG as a runner, IntelliJ as in the IDE for writing the code, and GitHub and Maven as in build tool. So that's what I'm using. So let's first take a demo, and then we'll move to how it actually works. So I hope you guys are able to see my screen. So we'll first take a look at the relative demo, relative locators. So how it works in terms of, this is a bad example which we have seen in the presentation slide. I am using, so there are a couple of things that I have created as in wrapper. It does nothing but highlighting an element, the same way most of the people are using. Over here, I have done thread.slip. This is very dirty. Don't use it. We don't use it in our test scripts. This is just for yourself to see what's happening. Otherwise, it would be like it's running and it's boom. You were not able to see anything. So what we are going to do is we are just going to run the script and see how it is actually running in the real time. Be patient. It's just building. It's taking time. I hope it runs. Okay, started. So most of them we are going to run it as in debug mode so that we can see what's happening there. So Chrome driver has started successfully, but it's going to be on my different screen. So this is how it looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it. It's loading the website. This website is technically low in terms of loading. So as you have seen, this is the bad example, which is I wanted to add text here, but it is instead actually selecting text here. So that's actually a pretty bad way of locating an element. So you need to understand where it is beneficial for you based on the application that you have and the DOM structure. Similarly, let's take a look at the demo in terms of the good example and how it looks. So we are going to run it again on the debug mode. And it should fire up the browser in very quick. I hope, yeah, it's loaded. So I hope you guys are able to see it. And what we'll do is we'll just fire up the script. And now it should add the text to the proper element where we actually want to add it. So over here it's gonna write what we want. So yeah, this is all about good and bad example. So this is all to make you understand how it should be, but it's not always what you want it to be. So let's first understand how it works. So in relative locator, so if you look at the Selenium documentation, they already have mentioned that they are making use of get bounding client rect. So for the people who are familiar with JavaScript, they know that they can actually use console to execute the JavaScript and to understand what things happens and get relative details. So Selenium is internally they are using get bounding client rect. What it does is it returns a DOM rect and which has a property like left, top, right, bottom, x, y, width and a height. In case of there is just one slight change with the locator that is near. What happens with that is it uses get bounding client rect plus it is trying to find an element which is 50 px away, that is pixels, from a specified element. So by default, this is the setting. But if you want to, increase the pixel density or you want to increase that size, you can actually use the overloaded method where you can actually mention how many pixels you want and how many from a specific element from where you want to find the element. So that is something that it does. So a regular syntax of this is element dot get bounding client rect. If we look at it, we can execute it like that. So I'm using the same web application where we have seen the good and bad example. So what it does, it returns an element with password and it is trying to get bounding client rect, which does nothing but gives bottom, height, left, right, and top. So how we are going to relate this with the viewport? So this is the image. This is the link where we can see from the whole documentation of this get bounding client rect. We can actually relate the all of the values with the right hand side of image, that if a particular element is being located and if we have this property, what all of this value denotes. So bottom, height, everything you can see that okay, it's an xy coordinate as well, what is width and height of the element. So that's what it returns. So when you say above, it tries to find an element above this particular area. So so it actually starts from the top of the DOM and not in a reverse manner. So we'll take a look at an example as well. So what I have done is I have created one simple demo for you to see how it is actually locating the elements. So we'll go on to the debug mode again, and we'll actually go into one by one. So I'm just gonna run it. In the meantime, if you have any question, you do raise it or add it in the chat section. Okay, we'll definitely cover the questions that we have. Let me just, okay, we'll just run the script. Look at it, just keep noticing what is happening. So I'm trying to highlight above portion of an element, this or to the left of, to the right of, below. So when you use above, it is actually trying to find an element in this section where you can see the red rectangle. In case of to left of, it is going to find elements in this direction. I think it's now going to see the below. It will only try to find elements that is below in this region. And when you use to right off, it is going to scan this portion and not this one. So you actually need to understand. And when you use near, this is a standard 50 pixel, then 100, 200 and 400. So it is very much important for yourself to understand how the DOM actually, how it actually tries to find an element inside of the DOM. So that was related to, for your understanding in the background, what exactly happens. So I hope this one is clear to all of you. Now moving on to the next one, capturing the element screenshot. I think a lot of people might be using out of a code which actually help us in having a screenshot. Like you create a you click get a full screenshot and then you actually use the Java uh, file output stream, input stream, and you actually trim it to the elements height and width. But now Selenium in Selenium 4 it's now out of the box. So what you do is you first find an element, and with that the way you do dot click dot send is there is now inbuilt method get screenshot as. Over there you can mention what kind of output file you want, whether you want bytes base 64 or a file. I'm a guy which don't like the files to be created in the temp directory, so I tend to hold it in a byte array, which is kind of very easy and you can manipulate however you want. Let's take a look at the demo first and how it looks. So we are going to check the screen capture one. This is the one. So what it does, it goes to source demo. Let's go back to that page. So it is going to try to find this element and it's just going to take a screenshot of this. So all you had to do was you find an element and you just do a get screenshot. Over here you can actually mention what kind of output, the way you used to do with the conventional get screenshot method. You can either say byte base 64, but I'm going to use bytes. Let's see, it is going to create a folder inside of my source code only. So let me just run it and see what it does in the background. So that's it's the same thing, but yeah, they just incorporate that for getting a screenshot of an element as well, which is kind of cool for a people who takes a lot of screenshot during the execution. Plus that can reduce the size of your file as well. Going to go now, it has screenshots. What I have noticed with Selenium 4 is when it is actually taking a screenshot, you can feel the flash that happen. I think you have seen the one flickering in the page which is happening with Selenium 4. I'm not sure whether that's by design, because if I look at it, what I understand is what they are doing is they are actually limiting that particular element. They are actually creating an HTML which contains only that element, and then they are taking a screenshot. That's what I have understood from the process that is happening. But yeah, that's how you should be able to take a screenshot. If we look at here, it has captured the screenshot that we wanted. So that's how it's pretty straight, no rocket science. It's just dot screenshot. That is one more thing that they have included is earlier we used to get height width from I think size and x and y from the dimension, but what they have done is they have now added rectangle, so you can get rect and you can use the same object to get height, width, x and y. You don't need to use separate like dimension and position to get an x and y. So it is now integrated into one common rectangle class which gives you all the details. So yeah, that's all in terms of capturing the screenshot. Now, I'm sorry, yeah, thanks a lot. So now there is one of the cool feature is window handling. So what you can do is you can now work on multiple windows together. So let's compare what used to happen in Selenium 3 was like, in Selenium 3, you click on element, it opens up a window or a tab. But over here, you can actually explicitly mention whether you want to open a window or a tab with this command like driver.switch to .new window, which has a to enum, which says window or a tab. So it opens this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use two applications, source demo, where I'm going to log in, and the internet website, which is I think the people who has registered or subscribed for newsletters from Simon, they must be aware of this web application. So I'm going to just work on it, and I'm just going to close all of the tabs. So let's quickly jump into the demo. This is the code for Windows and tab handling. So first we'll look at the Windows, how we can do it. So it's a similar code. You do it like this. So you can actually use tab or Windows. So that's how you use it. It's pretty simple. One thing to note is that it does not allow you to work on both the browser at the same time, because it's going to be a same driver session and not a two driver session. I think the people who might have worked on Protractor, in Protractor there is a method which is called fork. In case of fork, you will get two different driver session, and you can work on that simultaneously. So that is an important point to understand, that it does not work that way. So it is now working on internet site. Whatever the thing it is going to do, it's going to highlight it. It's going to close that browser. It's going to switch to this and a login. So that's how you do it. You just switching to a context is very much important. So don't assume that you can work it parallelly. You have to make sure that you get an appropriate context with get window handles, and then you switch to whichever the window that you want. So this is an important part. Similar to that, we have this one, tab handling. It's again a simple, no rocket science. So we are just going to quickly run the demo of it. And this is another demo for tab switching, which is going to do the same thing. It's going to open up two tabs, and it's going to work on login for source demo, and for the internet website, it's just going to do the same thing. So let us see the demo on that one as well. Yeah, it's here. Okay, so this is the one. On it. Yeah, so it is now opening a second tab. It does the job, it closes the tab, and then it goes to Swag Labs and login. That's it. So it is pretty cool. Now you have an ability to work on multiple windows if you want to do something on one window, and then use that data into the parent one. So that's how you use it. Okay, so this is all about the minor changes, but let's talk about the bigger one. So if you are an automation tester with a heart of a developer, so this is going to be an exciting thing for you to understand. So Chrome Dev Tools, I think a lot of people have mentioned that they have used Chrome Dev Tools for inspecting elements, using console for getting the logs, HTTP sessions, and then simulate the network speed. So now in Selenium 4, you should be able to do this without any restriction in the Chrome, and it is very good thing, and it's really cool. We'll go through the demo for all of them very quickly. So let's start with this. Before that, let's understand why it's available in Selenium 4 and why it was not in Selenium 3. So what happened in Selenium 3 was we were using Chrome driver and Edge driver, which was actually extending the remote web driver. I think most of the people agree that I think with remote web driver, if you look at the source code, there are not much of the important thing in that. So this is the source code from Selenium 3, where Chrome driver is actually extending remote web driver. So what changed in Selenium 4? In Selenium 4, it is actually now extending Chromium driver, and Chromium driver in turn extending remote driver. So that is one component that was introduced, that is Chrome driver. And with Chrome driver, we get everything that we used to do manually on Chrome. And let's see what's changed in terms of source code. So you must be curious that, okay, why we haven't taken a decision of adding this on Selenium 3. But yeah, we'll talk about this, but let's see what Chrome driver has. So if you look at this source code for Chromium driver, there is this method we can see is the get dev tools, which gets you everything. So let me open here. So whatever you see here, console, elements, sources, network, performance, memory, application, and security. Everything that you see here will be accessed through dev tools. So if you just want an object of dev tools, what you have to do is, if you are using WebDriver, you might have to cast your driver into Chromium driver and then get the dev tools. But if you have created an instance of Chrome driver, you can directly use get dev tool, because that's how it is extended. So that's the thing. And now why we are getting all of the details of Chrome in just with this. So in source code of Selenium 4, the whole dev tools that we see, the tab that I have shown all of this portion, it's now actually integrated into source code directly. So you get all the access to whatever you used to do. So recently they are even separating the versions of Chrome as well. So started from 86, 87, 88, 89. They are continuously working on it, also fixing the bug. So that's how the Selenium source code looks. So you have full-fledged access to Chrome Dev tools now. Now it's up to your imagination how you can do it and how we can use it. So we'll go through the demo on these things. I think can I think I'm hearing a background noise. So
It is,
if
yeah.
all of
Guys, if somebody is on not on mute, can you do that?
I'm
thanks a
just
lot.
muted. But yeah.
So let's start with the basic thing. I think this is something that bothered everyone. So we used to do basic authentication like this, username, password, and the website URL. I think most of the people tend to do it the same way. But with traditional, with the new modern web browser, what is going to happen is they are going to deprecate this going forward. Why? Because of security reasons. They feel that it's not secure to log into any application using this kind of format. It's kind of a hack into the system. So they, with as and when the browser is going to evolve, they are going to remove it completely. So now how we can do it if it's being removed? In Selenium 4, what we can do is there is this network domain. So let's first go over here and let's see how it looks like. Minute Chrome documentation. I think it's easily available. I believe this one. If not, then I'll just open it. Yes. So this is the original documentation. So this is not something that came from Selenium. It is Chrome's own documentation. So whatever you see here, consider that you will be able to do that with Selenium. Okay. So the screenshot that you see, it's actually from here, network.enable. So you can see a lot of methods that you can use and a lot of events that you can register and what you want to do. So that it's a full-fledged documentation. I believe that this documentation is not there on the Selenium 4 documentation website. So you might have to refer to this particular one if you want to know how we can do it. So if let's just say if you want to do a basic authentication using Chrome Dev Tools, what you do is you get Dev Tools, you create a session, and then there is a method called send, which accepts 3 parameters. What it is, when you enable the network on this side of the screen, it accepts 3 parameters, which says max total buffer size, max resource buffer size. So if you want to have a buffer size of how many things it can capture, you can provide it and over here in 3 parameters. They are now using optional.empty, optional.off. So people who used to work with Java bindings, they need to understand that with Selenium 4, they have now integrated industry grade programming code concepts. So they are using latest concepts from Java 8 and Java 13. So it's not something, so they could have done like overloaded method, but they wanted to use the latest Java concept so that people upgrade themselves with that as well. So this is how you can first enable the network before you even start capturing or before even you start tempering that particular thing. Then what you can do is you can actually use network.set extra HTTP headers and pass headers. What I have done is I'm just using this basic. So if you know that if anyone who has worked with APIs, there is a barrier tokens, there are basic tokens. So you need to generate that token. So over here, I'm using basic, and then what I'm doing, I'm just converting username and password to bytes. So this string is actually converted as in basic authentication token, and authorization, I'm passing it as in header of authorization. So which will directly accept. So this is the website that we are going to use. We will look at the demo for both of them with the conventional tab and with this one. So that's how it looks. So let's quickly jump into the demo so that you can see how it actually works. So we have a lot of demo in terms of dev tools. So over here, if you see, this is the conventional way of doing it, how we used to do, and it's going to get deprecated. So if a lot of people, if they are using it, just consider that with latest Chrome browser, it might not work based on the considering the security. So that is very much important for everyone to understand. So let me just fire up the browser. So it has opened now. Okay, let me just do F9. It's going to be really quick. So this is a conventional way. It actually asserts your browser made it. So that's how it does in the conventional way. Now let's take a look at the new way of doing it. As we have seen in the code, if you go here, I have actually created a WebDriver object and not the Chrome driver. So what I have done it, I have just casted it to Chrome driver so that I can have an access to get dev tool. So it's not a rocket science. Just like we used to get the JavaScript object, we can have a get dev tools from here, which gives every details of whatever we want to do with the Chrome dev tools. So over here we create a session. We actually enable the network and then setting a authentication header and then just load. So with CDP, what we have to do is we have to do all the configuration before even starting the URL. So you can't actually load a URL and then pass this details, because we have to register the events. We have to make sure that those things are available before we are actually loading the browser. So that's how you do it, and it's doing the same test. It is going to assert. So let's run it and see how it looks like. Should be quick. It's opening the browser. Sorry, I'm using two screens, so it's actually opening into the main screen. This is the browser, and we'll just run it. And yeah, it worked the same way it used to earlier. So people might have to consider this one. So this is very cool feature. If you are, more of a developer like me, you would love this one. There are if you are confused, how do I know that okay, we need to use this one. So we'll talk on this at the end of CDP discussion. So this is all about how you do a basic authentication. Moving on to the next one, access console log. So if we have seen, we tend to see a lot of errors here. So let's just say with your application automation script, you want to capture these logs as well, because this one is also important when you're actually doing automation script for a web application, and which can give an additional information to the developers. So code for that is, since it's console and it gives a log, we have to enable the logs. And then what we do is there are log entries. I think the people who have worked with performance data with earlier version of Chrome, they know that it returns a log entries. So you have to capture the log entries. This particular line of code, if you see, so like earlier I mentioned that people has to understand the new concept as well. So this particular line that you see, it is actually making use of Lambda functions. So whatever the listeners that you register, it's now it should be into a Lambda expression. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding all the logs to this particular list. So let's look at it. And over here you can see what all details that they have. So you can enable the logs. You can register the event. So I'm registering entry.edit because that's what I want. And if there are anything other thing that you want, you can do it. So let's jump back to the demo directly. So I think console log test here. So what it does is it enables the logs. It takes the log entries, and at the end what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna print it so that we'll see what is happening. Again, there is a wait of 10 seconds. Never do that on your script because I'm a terrible developer. So that's the reason I'm using it. But yeah, don't ever use thread.slave. Otherwise, you will be like thinking why it's taking a longer time to finish, and it's anyway a dirty fix. Okay, so you need to handle those synchronization through explicit or implicit waits. So if we look at the browser, what it happens is now it is just going to wait for 10 seconds because console. So the event that we have registered over here, it actually keep listening to it. So it's not that the page is loaded, which means that it will listen to that one only. You can enable it throughout the execution of your automation script, and you can decide which all log entries you want to capture. So you can decide whether you want to capture only errors, you want to capture only info. That's into your hands. So if we look at here, I have printed all of the things here. So there are now with Selenium, there are a lot of logs that is going to be there in your console. And for now, I can see there is no way of disabling it for now. So if you can see over here, all the logs has been captured. So these are all coming from consoles. So there are resource, fail to load resources server. You can even get the links. This can be directly passed on to the developers. So it is very cool when you want to capture a lot of things along with what you are doing. So this is going to keep listening to your console, and in the front end it's going to run. So it's not going to hamper your existing automation script in terms of whether it is going to pause the script or not. It's going to work just like the listeners. So that is all about console logs. Now if we move to the next one, yeah, with the log entry there are a lot of things that you can get. You can get the label, whether it's info, warning, error. You can get the tags, you can get the timestamp, URL, line number, stack trace, whatever you want. That's up to you to decide. But yeah, there is a very good documentation that I have mentioned earlier, which you can use always to understand what all methods they have. So if you look at it, I'm using entry.edit. What it gives me is like log entry, and over here I can see what all details I'll get from the object of log entry. So it's completely, so this documentation is, like I mentioned earlier, it's not available on Selenium website. So I already have added this link to here so that people can refer to it whenever they want. Moving on to the next one, I think we all love changing the location. So earlier, like with Chrome, we never had that one, but with the Selenium 4, you can now simulate the geolocation. So what we are going to do is we are going to make use of this What's My Location website, which actually captures your current location. What it accepts is, it's similar. First, you create a session, then you send an event, which is set geolocation override, which accepts three parameters. One is latitude, longitude, and accuracy. So you can even mention how much accuracy do you want, like 1 meter, 100 meter, 200 meter, and based on that, it actually shows the details. So let's jump into the What's My Location website and see what my current location is. Shows. This is the wrong one. Let me copy paste it from my test. Okay, so this is so it's by default it's going to take my location. So I'm just gonna allow it. I know, don't spam me. I'm actually in this location. But yeah, it feels like it is taking accuracy is very low. So right now, this is based on my GPS machine's GPS, but let's try to locate with the accuracy. So right, I'm nowhere here. Thank God, it's not showing my current location. Otherwise, you would be like, let me trace him. But yeah, let's see how it actually works in terms of, Chrome Dev Tools. So I have done nothing. What I've done is I just have created a data provider where I'm trying to move the location of New York with latitude and longitude at this one and the accuracy. Similar to I'm trying to locate this Leeds that is in the UK with this latitude and longitude. What I'm doing is I'm just actually using this one and using a data provider to set the location. But let's see with current location, let's see what it is actually showing. I hope it is not showing where I am actually. So let me debug it. It should open up a browser. I think we are running short on time as well, so I'll do quick presentation as well with this one. So Aditya, if you can on time so that I don't run out of it. I think it's a long one. So if you look at it, okay, it's taking the wrong because it is currently based on what my machine has set up and it's trying to get the details for now. Similarly, let's just quickly move on to this one. I hope let's end it so that it's going to make use of it. Sorry, it went into the another one and we'll end this script. So let me directly run it rather than going into the debug mode. I hope it won't open up all the browsers here. Okay, it's running. Sometimes it takes time for compiling. Okay, so with this, you can see it has loaded. So first it's gonna load the location of New York. You can see the accuracy is 100 and now it's in New York location. Now it's gonna capture all the details and then, so this is very cool feature. So you can actually move a location. So there are application where actually the time zone and all those are required. You can use this feature and you can actually mock your location if even if wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You can just use this function and you are all set to mock any location that you want on your website. So that's how you do it. I'm just going to quickly stop this one. I think the same way it is going to work for all of the three test data. All of the demo that you see here, it's actually available on GitHub. So you should be able to see all those code there and you should be able to use it. Okay, so let's quickly move on to the next session, next thing, that is insecure. So I think a lot of people might be using this in earlier. So what we used to do is with expired bad as this application, what is happening, let's load it once on a browser and see how does it look like. Okay, this one. Okay, what we used to do earlier is we used to click on it and then we used to do this one. And then it opens up insecure website. But I think with Selenium 4, we can directly enable the security. Over here, we can see that it says that you can enable security and there is this, you know, method which says site override certification errors. So you just have to use it and the value should be either true or false and it should do the job. So I'm just going to quickly run it to show you how it works. And the code itself is pretty straightforward. You enable the net security tab and then you just add this one and it's all done and dusted. You don't have to do anything. So let's quickly run it. Okay, so I think we just have 10 minutes, right, Adi?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna quickly finish the demos of all of this because the important part for everyone would be the transition. So now you have seen that it works flawlessly. You don't have to do anything. So you can easily handle this one. So this was all about insecure website. Then again, if you want to block specific URL, what you can do is we have a network tab because we know that if you want to block anything or you want to get details of anything, you need to use network. And then what you can do is you can set the URLs of whatever you want to block. So I'm right now blocking JPG, PNG. So all the image tab I'm blocking. I'll just quickly run it so that you can see how it looks like rather than, talking more on this one. That one is, okay, I think network intercepts where I'm actually blocking this URL. So I'm just going to run it quickly and we'll see how it looks like. Okay. So just imagine how the Amazon website is going to look like if there are all the images are, blocked. Okay. So should open up a browser and here you go. Just 1 minute. And so you must be thinking what will do with this kind of feature. So you can actually see how your website is going to look like without the images. You can also disable JavaScripts. You can also disable your all the CSS, SCSS, and then see how your website looks like. This is how it works. So it gives you all the features that you used to do through Chrome DevTools manually, but now you can do these things through automation as well. Moving on to the next, this I think a lot of people would love to see this feature. So now you can actually out of the box use the network, like you can actually mock the network conditions. So as you can see, you can emulate condition where you can mention whether you want to disable the network, you want to add latency, what is the download speed that you want, what is the upload speed that you want, and the fifth parameter would be what kind of connection type. So I'll just relate this one with the DevTools that we use. So we tend to use this one where if we go here, you can actually add what you want to add. So you can add download, upload, and latency. It is similar to what we have seen right now. And this is how you can do it in Selenium 4. So you can actually simulate these conditions and then just run it. So I'll just see if I can quickly show that as a demo. So this is a network simulation. And it's gonna, so over here, the same thing, I'm just using the data provider and I have mentioned the whatever the thing. So over here, it's understandable manner. So it is using 128 kbps as in speed and all of these things. You have to mention the values as in bytes per second. So make sure that you give it that way. I think it's running with the data, a lot of data. So what I'll do is I'll just comment this one and we'll run it just for once. Sorry, I'll just comment this one and we'll run it so that at least it doesn't take a lot of time. Okay, so it's gonna run it. This is the last demo that I'm gonna give it. Then I'll just directly switch on to the transition, because that is very much important part for a lot of people, and it is very interesting as well. So this is how it does. So it does take some diff. So what we just have to see how it is working. So it's just loading it. I'm not doing any assertion right now. I'm just waiting that how much time it takes with that particular speed that I have mentioned. Right now it is working with the speed as in what is the speed limit that I have given them. It's this one, which is 128 kbps. That is in kilobytes per seconds, and another one is 256. We should be able to see it here that how much time it takes. I'll just run it only one test case. So over here it has taken 30 seconds to load. So the similar way you can emulate all the conditions that you want. It does work. So I have tested it and the code works as well. Another one is simulating device mode. So I think a lot of people might be using a feature of converting your website into the mobile device. The same thing you can do it by this one. It has a lot of parameters. So you can mention what is the width of the browser that you want. Not you can maximize the browser, but when the web app is going to load, it is going to be this size only, height, width, whatever the scale factor that you want to use, and whether you want to move the device mode, mobile mode, or a normal web view mode. And also you can provide the screen orientation as well. So by this one, you can actually override the metrics of browser or the website that you want. So this also, like, rather than if you don't have a mobile device, you can actually use this feature to run it. Next is changing a user agent. So what is a user agent? I think a lot of people might know and a lot of people might not, but the user agent is something that contains a detail about browser name, operating system, device type, and all of those things. If we take an example of this one, the user agent application is Mozilla, which is running on OS X with version 10.2.2 and on Mac, and the client is Chrome, and which is using a Safari based version, and the engine is this responsive Apple WebKit. So that's what a UA string is. And if we go to here, how do you change it using Chrome Dev Tools? So you first enable the network. Over here, what user agent? So over here you can mention, you can see that there is a method of set user agent, and what it accepts is you can provide the user agent string. So with this test case, what it is doing is it is actually mocking what Apple iPhone XR will look like. And with every request that is being sent to the server, the headers will contain the information of iPhone only, even though you are running on your Windows machine. So that's the power of CDP. These are just very few examples, but there are a lot you can do. Another thing that is capturing the HTTP request, where you can capture all the requests that is being sent. Over here you can see there are a lot of things from request will be sent, response will be received. You can capture all of this data into any of the data structure that you want. You can process it later and then provide it to developers. So that's how you do it. Simulate time zone. What you can do is you can actually simulate the time as well. So it's very simple. All you have to do is create a session, emulation, set time zone with whatever the time zone that you want. And from this link, you can see the global time zone ID. You can use it. So that's how you do it. So that I think with that, I think a lot of features are there in the CDP. But yeah, that's just a small piece of thing that I incorporated, but a lot of things that you can do, which can be seen over here. You have n number of things that can be done. So you can use this as a documentation if you want to work with the CDP. Now moving on to the next, transitioning from 3 to 4. I think a lot of people are already aware of Selenium 3, so I'm not going to take a lot of time here. So earlier it used to have a JSON wire protocol, and it actually sends to a Chrome driver, and then it goes to through an HTTP server as an HTTP request to the browser, and then this is how it works. Moving on to the next, W3C WebDriver specification. So first, what is W3C? I think a lot of people know that it's a standard, or it's a community who defines how the web application should look like, and what are the things that a developer has to follow in order to make sure that the application looks same in the all of the platform. And now coming back to the W3C WebDriver specification, similar to all of the standards, they have created a document where they have mentioned that what, how and what should be done. So they have to follow all of the details when they are actually creating a Selenium script. So this is not for your understanding, but this is Selenium architecture that has changed into Selenium 4. So what happens in Selenium 4 now? We had Selenium client script server and a browser. Data goes from Selenium clients to server, and now it's a two-way street and not the client server model. And it actually directly communicates, because now Chrome drivers are also W3C certified, and browsers are also W3C. They are adapting the WebDriver protocol. So now its communication becomes very easy. So W3C protocol is now in between Selenium and server. But like I mentioned, a lot of people might confuse that W3C is a between, but not like that. W3C is actually adapted into the client library. So now it's directly integrated. So what benefit it can give us? Like if I'm speaking in English, if I'm delivering this speech in English, and let's just say you don't understand it, or in another way, you guys understand English and I'm speaking Spanish. What do we need is a intermediator like JSON wire protocol. So that was a Selenium 3 point, and Selenium 4, I am speaking in English and you are able to understand straight away. So all of the people are like, all of the parties involved, they understand WebDriver protocol, and that's the reason it is very easy to communicate, and there are no JSON wire protocol anymore. So W3C is now integrated into all the specification into the client libraries. Now transitioning. This is important point. This particular site will tell you whether you want to upgrade into the Selenium 4 or not. So if we know that Selenium less than Selenium 3.8, the protocol that was used was JSON wire protocol. So a lot of people might not know that they are already using W3C. So from 3.8 to 3.141.59, which is the latest table, it has both of the protocol, JSON wire protocol and W3C. I think I'm not sure how many people have noticed that it is using W3C in background. So what it does is, if the browser is W3C, if the WebDriver is W3C, it is going to use W3C dialect. We'll see how it is. In 4x, it is going to use only W3C. So if your scripts are like working on the old Chrome drivers, it is not going to work because there are no JSON wire protocol available. So that is an important part. If we look at it, Chrome driver, which is less than 75, it had JSON wire protocol. Chrome driver greater than or equals to 75, they have adapted W3C. So I think with 3.8 to 3.141, you should be able to execute your script. But by default, if you're using 75 as in Chrome driver, it is going to use W3C protocol because that is a standard now. Similar, and if you have noticed, you should be able to see this particular thing when you are executing your test cases, which means that it is already using W3C, which I'm not sure how many people have noticed, but this is a change which was already incorporated into 3.1.141.59. With Gecko, I think there is just a bit difference. With version 4.7.x, they were using JSON wire protocol. With this one, they are actually using JSON wire protocol. But if you want to execute your Firefox test cases, you need to make sure that you are using Selenium version less than 3.11. If you are using Firefox driver or Gecko driver greater than or equal to 47, it is mandated that you use Selenium dependency that is greater than or equals to 3.11. So this is there in the documentation, which is over here. So this is very much important for you to understand whether it's you can transit on 4.x or not. You just have to consider if like where this is going to affect people who are executing their test cases in old legacy system, which might be using old Internet Explorer, old Chrome. They might not be able to migrate into 4.x because they might want to use lower version number of Chrome driver, and hence with that you need to make sure that you use appropriate Selenium dependency. So for most of the people, it might not bother if they are using on, if their scripts are stable on 3.141.59. But again, it completely depends on your application, where it is being run, and if it's a legacy application, whether it's running on old Chrome driver. But with latest Chrome driver, it's not going to hamper anyway. Now, this is something, this is for your guys to understand. So what I've done is this test case has been executed from Selenium project. This all the test cases in Selenium source code that was created for 3.x, they have executed for 4.x version. And over here we can see that the pass rate is very good, 99, 97. So this says that even if you are migrating to 4.x, your percentage rate pass rate would be very much higher. So there will be just little less of the maintenance that you might have to do. Okay, so this is all advantage. With that, you get a standards like your test will run more consistently because all of the browsers are now using W3C protocol. With that, you get the stability because your test cases are stable because with a lot of browser they are using WebDriver protocol, which means you should be able to run it without any changing specific to browsers. So that is very good thing. Last but not the least, Actions API. So we have earlier moved to element.click, which is now click.web element. Internally, they are doing move to, so you don't have to use it. Similarly, click and hold, it is now click and hold an element. Context click, it's like that. Now, most of you must be thinking that if I use this earlier, what should happen with the new one? Whether it's going to fail? No, they have given new method. So all of your previous test case should work without any issue. But yeah, if you just want to use click.web element, which moves new to the element by default. With that, I'll end my session. So I think if any questions that I can take, sorry, don't get scared. I just wanted to add humor before I end it. we overrun a bit of like 5 minutes, but yeah, any questions that I can take now?
Thank you so much, Hitesh. Thanks for all those wonderful insights. I was about to ask you one thing regarding W3C because I could see that that's the key difference which comes in with Selenium 4. But I think you covered almost everything. Like from the literal title of your session, we could really understand like these are so many things which are coming our way, right?
Yeah.
With Selenium 4,
It's
you
just
try to
small
cover
bit.
most of the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving towards the questions, I think we have one. How are these relative locators better than writing an XPath with forward or relative access or with a parent-child relation?
Let me go back to the question as well. So that okay, how are these relative locators better than writing an XPath with forward? Okay, I think what I already mentioned that I'm not a big fan of relative locators because with relative locators you have a, if you're seeing above, which starts from the top of the DOM and then it scans up to the above portion. So now you have to understand, you have to restrict WebDriver to a certain way, like you have above, below, to right of, to left of. So it completely depends on your usability. But again, you just have to understand when you say above, what all portion of the website it's going to scan. So I would say I still prefer ID, a name, class name, CSS, and all those things first, and relative locator when you have nowhere to go. But yeah, instead of XPath, it's like worst case scenario when you use XPath, why not trying using relative locators? I think for my application where I was using XPath, now I'm going to use relative locator because at that there no ID is going to work, so I have to use it. So it completely depends on your application and your scenario. I hope I answered the question, Tushar. Okay, now.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks a lot.
thank you. And then we have one more. majorly we search out for the locators at WebDOM. So can we search it using this Chrome Dev Tools without searching it at the browser?
You can do everything like with Chrome Dev Tools. You can actually get access to the whole. I'll just switch to this one. So with Chrome Dev Tools, you get access to all of the tabs, whichever we see. So you can actually get all the details from over here as well. So you can get whole DOM as a text. You can manipulate the way you want. You can actually change this icon that we see with CDP. So it completely depends how creative you are, how much you have understood how the Chrome Dev Tools work. So in manually, I can change this image straight away by with some other thing. You can do the same thing with Selenium as well, but using Chrome Dev Tools. So it's up to your creativity, how you want to use it for your discretion. So that's how it works. I hope I answered the question, Tushar. Uh, if not, you can ask again.
I hope he has got the answer.
Okay, like
Yeah.
moving on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is it has been more than 2 years since Selenium 3.141.51 release, which is out there into the market, and Selenium 4.0 is in alpha state for a long time. So why it is taking so long for a stable 4.0 release? That's what he is asking. She's
Yeah, I
asking.
think that's a lot of people are asking. So I think Simon has clearly stated that we anyway have released Alpha 7, but we are getting a lot of. So the major changes in Selenium 4 is grid. So anyone who has looked at Selenium 4, a grid is now fully distributed mode. So there are a lot of bugs that's there in the Selenium 4, and like in grid as well. And whenever it, because earlier we were just had a standalone mode where we can run connect a hub and node. Now it's completely distributed, where you can run a router separately, you can run a distributor separately. So with Selenium 4 grid, it's on another level. So there are a lot of bugs there which they want to fix it as soon as possible. But right now, I think from a session from Simon from Selenium camp, he mentioned that we are going to release it on a Chinese calendar, Chinese New Year, but we haven't committed to the year. But yeah, that's the plan. It's going to take a while, but because a lot of bugs and a lot of pull requests are there and they want to review it. So that's why it is taking time. But if you want to start it, it's a good time to start, because Selenium 4, I can see that it's close to stable, but let's give it a try. It works really well, and I have seen a very good advantage on that one.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Hitesh. I think the quote says like better late than never. So let's wait for the stable
Exactly.
release and then we can see like how things are
Yes.
happening in
What
there. Yeah.
what I would suggest to people is that have a fail first approach. If you are transferring to Selenium 4, don't think about anything. Just use it, run it. Have a backup of your branch so that you don't end up updating a lot of things, and just run it. Whether if it fails, that's okay. You will get to know how many things are failing. Like earlier we used to pass time in duration, but now like it's instead of long, you can use duration dot seconds and all. So a lot of data types has been changed. So more of a making it standardized in terms of language as well, and in terms of protocol as well. So that's how it works now. So give it a try. I would say fail first approach is very good. You'll get a lot of things to learn from that only, rather than directly updating the code.
Yeah, makes completely sense, Hitesh. And by looking at the timeline, I think we are already 5 minutes over the time,
Yeah.
so we can
Just one thing
answer.
I want to show before I end. So
Uh-huh.
with my presentation, all the references that I have used, you
Good.
should be able to find it here. Don't look at, so there's just one place. You get everything that you want. On top of it, the demo that I have done, you can get it from my GitHub repository. So that's there. So you don't have to look it anywhere else. Just PPT is enough for you to understand the changes. And at the end, thanks a lot for having me here. ATA and all of the audience there, and thanks for bearing with me for an hour. You can connect me on this handles. So, yeah.
I would like to give you a big thanks on the behalf of the Selenium Summit. You have shared wonderful knowledge with all of us and you
Uh,
answered many questions.